Yeah, I'll just recap some stuff that I've said previously for the people watching the recording. Those we have been previously making some Rust sessions here with some people from Masari, and the foundation decided to make this like a public recurrency type of event, so we can always have discuss and share uh, Rust content and Rust questions and stuff within the Graph ecosystem. And those events will be like a source of training or point of discussions and stuff, so everyone can feel comfortable reading and writing Rust code with the purpose of writing subgraphs, or even as a higher goal, maybe sending some pull requests to the graph node project. Why not? But yeah, I mean, the point is that the more people talking about and using Rust, the better. So yeah, for today's session, we hope to cover the basics of what it takes to use Rust, to learn Rust, and what it's involved on substreams development. So I won't go too technical on those aspects as uh, it's our first meeting. So yeah, I have some links here that I want to share with everyone. I'll be sharing them in the stage chat channel. So I think the most obvious one to start with is the substreams page from Streaming Fast. So there is this the substreams page is like the official documentation for substreams. There is this great video from Alex from Streaming Fast that he introduces substreams, and I think it's an amazing video because it covers super well how substreams are different from subgraphs, and how graph node works on a top level, and why we need substreams and how you can think of substreams. So I recommend everyone to take a shot at this video, and yeah, it's a very thorough introduction to substreams. Thanks, Alex, for this great content. And here in the substreams documentation, we can have we do have pages for installing a substreams runner that we can work with locally. We can and it also covers how to get an API key for streaming fast and everything you need to install to so that you can run the follow the tutorial, compile the Rust code into WebAssembly modules, and then run the substreams. So yeah, and this is the official reference for substreams, and we can see that it's substreams are based in modules, and I'm just I'm just skipping way ahead here in the tutorial. And the modules are are Rust code that gets compiled into WebAssembly modules that are then executed by the substreams execution context. So Rust code can be a little scary if you have never worked with Rust before, but that's the point of this meeting, of this gathering that we're having. And for learning Rust, what is the best way to get started with Rust? So I recommend everyone installing Rust in your local environment and reading what I some of the I think it's the best introduction to Rust is what we call the Rust book. So one thing at a time. So to get started with Rust, I recommend everyone to use the RustUp uh, website. It's RustUp is a tool to get your computer ready for writing Rust code, and it also handles updating the Rust version. It handles installing components to the Rust compiler. That, for instance, I think there is no need today to install WebAssembly targets. I think they come with Rust by default now. But Rust Up is like the recommended way to installing Rust in your system. You can use our package manager, but I still think that Rust Up is a little faster than waiting for your package manager to update and stuff. So whenever there's a new Rust version, and they do come out every 6 weeks, you just run Rust Up update, and you get your the latest version of the Rust compiler on your machine. So there is the second link here, the Rust Up link. I, I pasted it here. So yeah, if you just run this command here, if you're on Windows, it's going to show a different command, but if you're Mac on Linux, that's the right way to go. And yeah, and the next, once you install Rust Up, once you run this command, you will end up with the Rust C, which is the Rust compiler program, and you will end up with Cargo. Cargo is the Rust project and package manager. So you can create new projects, you can add dependencies, you can type check your code, you can compile your project. It's like the main command you'll be using to interact with Rust repositories and projects. Yeah, and the second thing I talked about Rust is the Rust book, and I think we can find it here in the Rust Lang org. So yeah, let's click on Learn, and there is the Read the book here. So yeah, three great projects. I think I've mentioned the Rustlinks course. The Rustlinks course was what we were doing previous to this day on this Rust Bootcamp sessions. So I I will open them here for later. But let's get started with the book. And last but not least, there is this Rust by example project, which is a great way to see how to do specific things with the Rust. It's like a cookbook uh, type of documentation. It's very clear, it's very concise, and I do recommend after you read some parts of the book, after you have some uh, after you have done your first steps with Rust, I do recommend checking out Rust by example. It's a great way to see how do I open a file in Rust, how do I write to a file, how do I send an HTTP request, and so on. It's and it's the code is very well documented as well. But yeah, I'll leave it for last here. But now let's click with here to go to the Rust book. Just change here to the default thing, and this is the Rust programming language book. It's updated regularly. I think, yeah, it was. Assumes you're using Rust 1.61. It was like recently released, and you have you can read this like the recommended order of reading is of course from start to finish, but you can jump anytime. You can jump into a specific chapter to 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 see how things are done in Rust. So I do recommend everyone to give it a go, and it's a very very beginner friendly uh, material type of material. It's made for. I think it's great for learning to program because it's so beginner friendly. So if you're coming from other programming languages, it's very easy. They have lots of comparisons, and if you don't come from a programming background, it's also very easy on explaining how memory is laid out in Rust and how the Rust compiler sees things in code. And yeah, I really recommend it. And you can see it covers the common concepts like data types, the ownership. The ownership is a, a concept I wouldn't say unique, but I think that Rust was the first language to broadly uh, use this ownership model, and it's really what makes Rust unique in my point of view. It talks about structs, enums, pattern matching, which is also a Rust very strong point. How to manage your project and using cargo, using third-party dependencies, which are awesome in Rust, by the way. Yeah, I have a chapter on collections like vectors, dictionaries, error handling. It's very differentiated in Rust as well. Rust, I don't know if you everyone knows, but Rust doesn't has the concepts of exceptions. Everything is data oriented. It's very convenient and ergonomic to handle errors in Rust. Then it covers generics, traits, and lifetimes. It's a little bit more advanced stuff here, but even still, I would say it's very important to learn, and substreams do use them a lot. Testing and there's lots of things here. If you guys want to know how to run like concurrent programs in Rust, which is also Rust's strong point, there's a chapter for it. And yeah, the the more you read, the more advanced this gets. But I think it's worth giving a shot. And then there's the Rustlinks course, which I think is a great way to get your hands on some Rust code. So the Rustlinks course is like, let me just share this link here in stay chat. Okay. We have been doing the Rustlinks course for the past few weeks in the sessions, and it's like the Rustlinks is a command line program that comes with a repository of exercises. So you run the Rustlinks command, and it guides you through a series of code examples in the form of challenges that you need to solve to complete the course. If you click here in the exercises folder, you can see there are very different topics. There are topics for primitive types, strings, tests, traits, variables, vectors, and so on. There are, and like generics and functions. We can see there are many different exercises for each of those topics. And all of those exercises come with a hint on how to solve them, so you never feel lost about what you should do. And you can also find lots of help in the Rust community and even in the Rust channel on our Discord server. So I recommend everyone giving a shot at Rustlinks, because after you're starting to feel familiar with the language, because Rustlinks is such a great source of content to get you close to some unique Rust concepts. So yep, there's Rustlinks, and then the last one I told is like the Rust by example. Let me just change the theme, and then you can have like categories. It's like a cookbook. You can you can see like some annotated source code to how things work and why those pieces of code are there in first place and what you can do to them. And it's like a good reference for when you do want to work with, let's say you have a specific problem in your code and you wonder what's the best way or what's the idiomatic way of dealing with a situation. You probably can find it here in the Rust by example. So yeah, I definitely recommend Rust by example. So let me just copy that link and share with everyone here. Yeah. So the purpose of those sessions is to get our hands dirty with Rust. So and to practice Rust by example. And one extra material that I want to share with you guys is the playground, because we have this. Let me just clean this. Is like a very old code here. The Rust playground is a website that you can write Rust snippets and you can run the source code, and you can. It's just like what Rust compiler would do in a single source file in your local computer, but it allows you to share to run the code, to share this code with everyone else. So it's usually the standard way of asking for help with Rust. You paste a version of your code or a part of your code that might not be working, and then you can share the link with everyone else, and everyone else can work on a solution, work on a fix, and share it back with you. So I'll leave it here, and I'll just give an example, like a hello world function using the Rust playground. So you can even configure the editor, the theme. I think is there a default one? I don't know. Let's try to pick a light theme here. I think this is a light one. Yeah. So if I were to write a hello world program, I would write a main function with a print call to hello world. And yeah, this is like the very basic forms of Rust code. If I click run, I can get an execution tab here, and that's what gets printed to the standard error into the standard output of a terminal. So those are more like info messages, and this is the actual output of the program. And this is a hello world program that I can click share, and it will generate a link for me to the playground. So permalink to the playground, a direct link to the gist. It creates a gist on the fly for us. And if I click here, I can see that I just created this gist here that I can also share in GitHub. So yeah, and I can, let's say I can want to share this code with you guys. I can just click here and I'll paste it in the stage chat. So everyone can access and interact with the code I've shared. And whenever you feel to share it back, you can just click share again. It will generate a new permanent link, and we can help each other by collaborating like this. So it's a very convenient stuff. Sometimes you are outside or away from your computer, and you just want to try something else in Rust. You can. It's not the best way to write Rust, but you can do it in your mobile phone or something like that. It's very handy. So yeah, and well, this is everything that I had to introduce you guys with Rust for today. And yeah, I would like to hear back from you guys. What do you expect to 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 learn from in this course? How do you guys expect the sessions to be like? If you guys want to pick some maybe pick some Rustling's exercises to work with, or how to maybe to work with, have an example substreams, a substream to work on and tweak it a little bit. Maybe someone already has a substream and wants some help on making it work properly. Yeah, just want to, I just don't want this to be a monologue and everyone can participate, everyone can have a say in here what we should do next. Or yeah, and since today is the first day, I would like I would also want to hear what questions or uh, I don't know, maybe someone has some misconceptions about Rust and what are some have some fears about Rust being too difficult and want to talk about that. I'm all ears. So what do you guys have to say for today's session?
So for those that feel a little bit intimidated by
Yeah.
the size of the book or by the number of examples and Rust by example, like where would you start if your end goal is being able to write a substream?
Yeah, I think that it's a little bit. I must confess, it's a little bit hard after using Rust for a while. Uh, I they say it's like the curse of knowledge, right? That once you have like you're used to something, you think it's easy. But I would definitely suggest starting with the Rust book. And where is the Rust book here? Yeah, the Rust book. I would definitely start here with the. I think that this first step here is will guide everyone uh, on using Rust up, which I just showed previously. So yeah, I think that the first step to use Rust in substreams is to actually get used to managing a Rust project. and the book will guide you through it. So on chapter 2, it guides you through creating a guessing game. I think it's like you guess a number, and you just the program generates a random number, and it uses the terminal so that the user can make guesses until you find out what the number is, and it just says, oh, it's higher than that or it's lower than that. I think it's a great first project with Rust. So I would suggest going through the getting started section, the first chapter, which will get everything installed in your environment. Will install cargo. It will guide you through creating a simple uh, initial project with cargo, and after you feel comfortable creating a project, running it, printing some stuff, random stuff, maybe some basic math, then I think uh, going to the second chapter is a great way to start writing a more structured program. And after that, I think that everyone will be confident enough to just go through the chapters and be curious about how things work in Rust. So how do I maybe come up with a practical example? Like I want to create a command line tool that, I don't know, catches up the most, maybe queries some API and some IMDb API and gets the ratings for a movie or for a series episode. It's totally doable in Rust. And maybe that's a good starting project. Like what makes you want, whatever makes you want to build something, I think it's worth giving a shot, trying to build it with Rust first. Not for the sake of completeness, but just as a practice, and just like how would that program look like in Rust, and would it be too different than a program that I'm already used to, uh, from a program on a language that I'm already used to. So in the beginning, I was comparing a lot. Like I came from Python, and I was always comparing. Oh, a Python program would be simpler, would be different, or would be more complex than a program in Rust. And yeah, I think it's a good way to learn Rust, to compare with something that you already know. But I would definitely encourage everyone to go through this programming a guessing game chapter. I think it's a really good one. And if I'm not wrong, I think that somewhere here in the book, we here on chapter 12, there is an exercise. I think the whole chapter is an exercise to building a grep like program. So you will build a command line program that will scan a text file for some matches and lines that matches a pattern, and will return that line just like grep. I mean, grep is a way more robust tool, but it's like a similar concept. But then again, the purpose is not to make something complete, but to make something that you can relate to and you can comprehend what it takes to build something like that. So it deals a lot with I/O, and I think that's maybe resemble a little bit of substreams, because you get data in, you need to get data out in a given format, and I think that is a good way to getting used with the rest. Because yeah, I think that's uh, a good path. I mean, I've seen many different Rust books other than this one, but I don't know. I think that there are specialized books, but I think that overall the Rust book, the Rust book as we like to call it, still tops them all. I think it's very thorough. I think it's very beginner friendly, and I really think it's a great place to start. And I think you will all agree with me after a few chapters that it's really like uh, slow paced and gently introduces all the Rust concepts that people tend to think they are very hard or they don't make any sense. But in the end, you start in the end you start agreeing why those things are needed, and start to admire the language way more than fear it. And yeah, it's hard for me to say because I really like programming in Rust, and I really think it's at least for me was a greater experience than other programming language that I have the chance of working with in the past. So yeah, I would say that give this programming a guess game start, and don't forget to go to the first chapter before it. That's what I would suggest for someone who has never ever interacted with Rust before.
Often